Thank you. Good afternoon. Oh, you are all asleep. I know it's Friday. Come on. Good afternoon. There we go. Thank you very much. Today, or this afternoon, I've actually concluded this is the best time to do a presentation. Friday, it's at 5 o'clock. And the reason why it is the best time is it's not worth for you to leave because you're just going to sit in traffic. So you might as well sit here. There's coffee outside. If you want to come back, that's fine. And I also promise you that I'll try to actually not use the entire time, so maybe just 40 minutes, because then you actually do get an extra present from me, and you can say at least there was some value in the session because I got 5 minutes back of my life. However, we're going to talk about three things. We're going to talk about three things that I believe sort of are the guiding lights for what we've talked about at the event up until now, but also what is important when we talk about digital transformation. As we talk about this, I just want to remind everybody, there is this buoying assumption that we've done digital, so what's the next thing? And people go, oh, well, that's AI. Could I just, as we start this, remind you that AI is a small component of digital transformation. It is not the next thing after digital transformation. But I'll talk about three things. I'll first give you, in one slide, my view of where will we be 30 years from now, okay? That is probably the most ambitious thing to try to do in one slide. And I will always warn you that actually when I've done this, you will probably conclude, well, I knew that. But it's not necessarily understanding the first level ramification. It's kind of the second and third level ramification of what we all talk about that is really important. But it's also important for you if you're CEO, or if you are the CEO, if your chairman of the board asks you, where's everything going? So we'll do that once. Then I'll go into what are the 12 areas of technology that you should somehow be focusing on right now. And we'll do that very fast, so don't think that we're going to dive into and spend a lot of time on technology, because it is Friday afternoon at 5 o'clock. And then the last thing, which is actually the most important thing, and it was mentioned a couple of times on stage here, which is all this technology doesn't really matter. Because the really big transformation lies in whether or not your leadership teams, managers, actually have the right capabilities to execute the things we have to do over the next 3 to 5 years. And the rapid answer is they don't right now. And so the question is, what the heck are you doing about that? And I'll give you at least a little bit of a framework for how you might want to think about it, and also a little bit of an idea as to where things are. Now, as you've seen the other presentations, it seems to be very, very popular to start with quotes. In fact, the same quotes. I call this kind of the obvious, because you've heard it so many times now. The really cool one, that's the one that Timo covered. And then the very scary one, which Timo also talked about, right? So, but I use this at every presentation because this means something else to me than the quote. It means, are you thinking like a software company because you are a software company? There's a lot of you that sit and say, oh, well, I'm so happy that my HR department or my finance department is now suddenly starting to work with technology. Well, actually, every department is a technology department. Every budget is a technology budget. And therefore, the fact that software is eating the world changes the way we do things. So does the fact that data is in abundance, but we don't have the right data, and we certainly don't have that data treated in the same way that oil gets treated when it actually gets refined. And then most importantly, are we actually just being eliminated by all of this so that technology, maybe AI as an element of that, is the end state, and we're just temporary as humans? Now, you may think, oh, well, this guy that came up with this quote, that's somebody must have read the Gen AI research. This quote is from 1970. 1970. So, that's our start. First, then, let's say, okay, well, where are we going? And obviously, when you ask that question and then try to tell everybody where are we going, you can become very complex, but you can also really simplify it. And I think it's actually pretty easy to simplify where we are going. It's very interesting to say what then happens. This is the world today. It consists of human beings. It consists of processes that sometimes get combined in organizational structures, whether private companies, government, society, and it consists of the physical products that human beings produce. That is, in essence, the totality. And what we are talking about is a world in which we digitalize all of that through a series of different technologies. And we are ending up in a world 30 years from now that essentially has a digital mirror of everything that we have today known as physical things, which is us as human beings, structures and processes and organizations and society, and then the products that we surround ourselves with, the things we have and produce. And so our job is to enable the transformation towards that. One is all products become digital, they become autonomous, they become self-aware, they become products that in essence understand what they are made of and where the components came from, so that in fact we have the beginning of a truly sustainable and circular economy, because they know, and where those products become probably your biggest customer segment 30 years from now. Because the products will buy from you. Okay? Directly. The second thing is the processes. We will have a complete digital structure, a digital twin of our organization. That means we test out organizational changes digitally first. We see whether or not we can reconfigure our processes to allow for a different structure that merges marketing, product development, and sales into one structure, because we in our organization, you in your organization, may think that makes sense. And then last but not least, we will have many instances of ourselves. Right? We will also have instances that are non-existing entities that are truly digital, but we will have digital and many instances of ourselves in the digital world, and somebody in this room will eventually work and earn money, if you are not already, earn money as a digital person that works in a digital universe and enables you to earn money through that as a digital individual. So when people tell you jobs are disappearing, yeah, some jobs are disappearing, but we are creating the next wave, the fourth wave of new jobs that come after the service revolution and will be an experience-based revolution of which most of us will live in an experience that is a digital experience as digital individuals in a digital world, testing and using digital products and operating with digital processes. That's not something that happens 5 years from now. And anybody that tells you, oh no, AI is going to revolutionize things and it changes it, in 5 years everything will be implemented. Just ask the people that build trains. Because if you are a builder of trains, whether the rolling stock or the locomotives, there are actually legislation today that says you have to keep an ability to produce components for a train for the next 35 years. So if we're talking about a world that's digital products, it will take us 35 years before the entire rolling stock is changed out and the world is therefore truly digital. That doesn't mean that there are things that will change tomorrow, and it doesn't mean you have to focus on this, but just keep in mind that change doesn't actually happen as fast as we think. And part of that is many industries are governed by regulatory environments that are important to deal with. Okay, so now we know where we're going. Then the question becomes, what are actually the things that are important for us to focus on now to enable that? And I think that there are 4 areas. I deviate from I don't know if you guys know this, there is a golden rule of presentations. Always do things in 3, okay? That's why I do this one in 4. And it's AI's fault, okay? Because I kind of had to add the AI bit, because otherwise people would say, you have no clue what's happening in the industry. So we'll talk a little bit. Timo has covered it fantastically in terms of the AI revolution, so we're not going to spend a lot of time on it. But the second thing is, what is going to happen? Which technologies actually accelerate our digital transformation? What is it worthwhile to look at when we talk about digital products? Whether you're a producer of products or purchaser of products, things will change for you. And then last but not least, the internal infrastructure of things will change as a cause of a series of different technologies. So in the first bit, we'll talk about Gen AI and pervasive AI. We'll talk about data a little bit, because just look at the recording of Timo's presentation and you have it there. The second thing, we'll talk a little bit about what accelerates things from a perspective of our digital transformation. And part of that, for example, is software development, and I'll get back to that. Products, we'll talk about digital twins, but more importantly, we'll talk about what happens in a world that is truly mobile and in a world in which all products are electrified, not just the cars, but everything that we buy. And then last but not least, what's the next wave of cloud? What's the next cloud wave? Yeah, that's an interesting one. What's the next wave of cloud, quantum, and then also connectivity? Okay, let's jump into it. Trying to basically summarize certain things. Every one of these 4 charts that you will see after these sections have the same structure, okay? And I'll explain the structure, but then I'll actually jump some of the content in the subsequent 3 because it's 5 o'clock in Friday afternoon. Gen AI. The most important thing for you to start to look at is obviously what are the actual use cases for you as an organization, and why not use ChatGPT to come up with the use cases, but that's another point. But what are the use cases for this? When you do that, we all can look at whatever has been written over the last 9 months about generative AI, and we can conclude, yes, it has an impact on our cost structures. Okay? You're fine. You understand that in many areas the productivity improves substantially, so that the cost structure of your company changes. And I love to talk to IT service organizations, the Accentures and the Deloittes and whatever you have of the world, because you tell them, are you using AI? Just ask them, are you going to be using AI in software development? If I'm Accenture, here's what they will say. Yes, we are training 80,000 people and we're spending $3 billion on artificial intelligence, and part of that is to make our developers a lot more competitive. Then you go, okay, that means I can get my product cheaper from you. Right, yeah? Because suddenly it becomes a lot cheaper to actually develop stuff. But you have to be careful when you do that, because I will also do it to your products. Because it also changes the cost structure of your products, and it therefore changes the competition of everything. That is starting to think second-order impact of the obvious things we read about in the newspaper. And that's what I would recommend you to do when you look at these use cases, of which there are many, many out there, is think about, well, what happens when we do this? What changes? What will our customers do, and how will they react? The second thing is the AI market is dead. You get that, right? Because there has never been anything such as the AI market. AI is a capability that crosses everything we do. And so the main thing to look at when we say, okay, well, what happens when AI is everywhere? That and Timo talked about this, is that things change with regards to jobs. And in fact, there will be tasks, as he said, and others have said as well, tasks that will be replaced by AI. And the most important people for you in IT to go to right now is HR, and ask them then, do you believe in this? They will likely say yes. When they say yes, the question is, so what are we doing about it? Because our entire HR strategy is designed around jobs. Every system we have is designed around jobs. Everything we do ourselves is designed around jobs. How many here use LinkedIn? How exactly? You should all have your hands up because you do, I know, okay? But when you look at LinkedIn, it's all based on what job I had. It doesn't actually say what's the maturity of my skills, how good am I at certain things. And so you could argue in this transformation, there is a plausible scenario that LinkedIn dies. And so we need to think about how do we change our mindset also as managers from jobs to skills. Because you need to be able to predict which skills do I need, which skills are then human and which skills are digital, and how do I blend the two, and how do I make sure that I have managers that understand how to manage both of them in combination, because that's what adds value to the business. And then data. The only thing I would say that hasn't been said is this has to be on the executive agenda as part of strategic planning. And most companies don't. And the reason why I say most companies don't, I work with a software company that has a tool that does strategy execution. So I can see all of the different companies that work with strategy, what they actually have. And there's very few that actually mention the word data when it talks about the company's strategy. That's bad, okay? So those are the three things. Now, in each of these slides, you'll see this. Because this is Peter Sondergaard's view of what is the maturity of this area. Because the four things mentioned here is what I believe is important for you as you consider this. What's the maturity today? What's the maturity 5 years from now? That's the different in color arrow. What's the talent available today, and what will the talent be available over the course of the next couple of years? What is the impact on your growth as a business, and what is the cost impact? Because those four things, some people in this room would add, you also add risk and look at that, but those four things are probably worthwhile to be thinking about when you think about each of these three areas as you go through them. Now, I said I won't go through them because it's too much. Acceleration. So I kind of gave this one away because I think it's so fun. It changes software development productivity at least 35 to 40% across the development life cycle. Remember, it's not just the coding; it's the ideation. It's the ability to actually plan. It's the ability to maintain the code. All of that means we improve productivity over the next 3 years of 35 to 40%. And over the last 2 weeks, I've had people tell me I have a development department of, there's one 2 weeks ago, I have a development department of 15 developers, not a big company, 15 developers. I know when I'm fully implemented in this, I actually only need 3. And this is awesome news because the 12 others can now start to do all the things we want to do. And this is where we have to think about, okay, so what is the next order impact of this? Is the productivity increase actually has a substantial impact on how we accelerate our digital transformation. This is really, really important, and it is the major CEO issue of all of the giant services companies around the world, whether it's Wipro, TCS, Accenture, Deloitte, and any mid-sized development shop. This is their major issue. Because there is a scenario, a second-order scenario that says that for all of them, their margins go to zero. And obviously, if you're the CEO, you don't want that. All right, trust. It's clear cybersecurity, and Timo mentioned this a little bit also in his presentation as part of a conversation that we had this morning, is that we need to start to think about designing zero trust into the architectures of what we have. Because as AI improves, the ability to do very, very targeted spear phishing, as he mentioned, means that we have to think differently about how we design trust, security, cyber into the architecture as opposed to bolt it on. And then last but not least, we will, although I don't know if anybody was here last year, because last year I made a big joke of Mark Zuckerberg, and I could, if I had time, again, do that, but I'm not, because it would be unfair to him. But last year I said he will fail. And suddenly 3 months after, he didn't listen to me, trust me, but 3 months after, he basically concluded, no, the world isn't about the metaverse, it's about AI, right? Now, what he didn't understand is Mark is young. Well, he knows that. He's young. And so he hasn't lived through enough evolutions of technology to understand that he was actually version 2. And we all know the golden rule of technology, which it is that it isn't until version 3.1 that something is successful. Because if any of you here are old enough and have lived through the PC evolution, you will know that Mark Zuckerberg was sort of the PC in 1978, before IBM introduced their PC and before the whole battle between IBM's OS/2 and Windows. That's coming. That's the next wave. When it happens is difficult to predict. I don't have time to explain to you in technical detail why and what needs to change, but there are things that are not in place now that will be in place in what will be version 3. And then we will finally see this significant launch of the digital human structure that is out there. This is how you should look at it from a cost, maturity, growth perspective, and talent perspective. We won't talk about that in detail. Instead, let's go to the third portion, which is that of the products. So, Timo had this slide up that said, the AI is like the horseless carriage, right? We just put an engine on a carriage, and what we have is the next generation of products that are coming out are digital-first design products. So it isn't that we sit and design a car and then say, how can we overlay that car with a software architecture that allows it to exploit the world of electric vehicles. It is, we design everything around the architecture of software and the experience environment, and that defines how the car looks. Because if you look at it, every version of car that's out now, to just extend the example, looks like the gasoline engine car. But do we really need 2 trunks? Because there's no engine there, right? So, yes, it's great that we get 2 trunks, one in front and one in the back, because in one of the places the engine historically was, but it isn't anymore. But does it need to be designed that way? No, it doesn't. Because we just suddenly have freedom, and it will change when we do digital-first design, and it will do so across every product that we have there. Mobility will also then enable us to do this. I'm still baffled. I live in Phoenix, Arizona. Hotter than Istanbul, okay? Not as humid, but hotter. And we have one of the autonomous driving car companies that now operate in Phoenix, Waymo. And you can book it by an app, and up shows a car. There is nobody in the car. Absolutely nobody. You get in the car, and it drives you to where you want to drive. It is such a mind-blowing experience because we're also used to seeing somebody sit in front and actually steer the car. But this is an indication of where we're going because that car is obviously autonomous. It acts by itself. It's connected to the internet. It, in fact, enables us It isn't there yet, but it enables us really to start to think about sustainability. Last night we had a group of CEOs together. We didn't get to this conversation, but I work with a small Danish company that has a blockchain designed for shoe manufacturers so that the shoe manufacturer knows exactly what cow the leather came from that goes into, and these are high-end shoes, into your Gucci shoes. They can basically tell you the cow lived there, it died at this time frame, the piece of hide that is the shoe came from here, and so you know that cow was treated well. You know that this was maybe also done in a sustainable manner, and of course we know, because it's quality leather now, we know that if we want to reuse it, we may be able to do so. Every product goes through this transformation as we move into the next couple of years. And this, in addition to that, we then start to electrify everything, which, this is the main aspect of why Elon Musk is killing the rest of the car industry, is he has production costs that are a lot lower than established incumbents. And when you go into every aspect of product that turns from some level of powering that is gas-based into electrified operations, you enable a much lower cost structure. Your lawnmower that is the autonomous lawnmower is actually a lot cheaper, 30% cheaper to produce than a lawnmower that has a petrol engine. Your vacuum cleaner that is a Roomba vacuum cleaner is a lot cheaper to produce than others because of the electrical aspect of things. So everything electrified changes the cost structure. When you and in addition to that, because it can be always on, it collects data all the time. So now you have mechanisms that collect data and in fact can act by itself. So there's a lot of things that you do with a product that you don't need to do anymore. That's what electrification does. And then our last area, infrastructure. We are at a stage in which the evolution towards cloud is sort of not plateauing, but we're not going to see the aggressive growth rates from Amazon or Microsoft or Google. So if you're buying their stock because you believe that they will continue to grow on corporate cloud-based revenue, it's going to be slower. But there's a next wave, and the question is which of these and others will actually catch the next wave, which is cloud at the edge. All those devices, products we have, we're going to try to move all of that up into the cloud, and that's not yet efficient and well done yet. They have struggled with the whole wave of IoT over the course of the last couple of years, so we still have a hockey stick that's coming there. And the question is obviously when, but this is important for those of you that produce products and actually have an ability to exploit edge-based computing and the technologies there to start to really think about when is that hockey stick curve, because it changes the cost structure of things. Quantum, I think it's the coolest thing because the more I read about it, the less I understand. I mean, I get some of it, but really, and then I read more and I go, okay, well, I don't really get it now. But in any case, I mean, there's no doubt that 5 years from now, it moves beyond Volkswagen, BMW, Novartis, the big banks, because they use these now, either as rented services or as own implementations. And obviously you have the Googles and the Microsofts that are playing around with this. But 5 years out, in some places around the world, this becomes accessible for smaller companies as a traditional service bureau model that we knew from the technology age of the 1970s, when people couldn't afford mainframes and rented themselves in on other mainframes, right? We'll go through the same evolution with this technology as we have with a lot of others. And then the last thing is integration of networking-based technologies. We've, the last 5 years, gone through a level of disappointment around networking. 5G. So what did it do for you? Okay? I mean, I've been standing on a stage 6 years ago saying 5G is going to revolutionize the world because it enables us to have faster connection with a lot of different devices that we have out of there and experience on the device. Even in Korea, they're now questioning whether or not there's value in this, okay? Now, the thing that is interesting is the technologies that are emerging, that is the interconnectivity with some of the newer technologies that are out there. So integration with our existing network architectures and that of 5G, low orbit satellites, Elon Musk again, low orbit satellites, and the combination of this will actually start to look at introducing new opportunities for all of us. Those are the 12, okay? Those are the 12 areas that you either decide not to work on because they aren't important for you, or that you have people that work on now. Because these are all areas that can change things, and that leads us to our last point today, which is you're not going to get anywhere, and Halil said this morning, unless you understand where you stand from a perspective of digital maturity. And there's in my mind, and I know Halil shares this, but he didn't say it. In my mind, you cannot change things unless everybody uses the same language. And right now, if I go into your organization and ask them, what do you think digital transformation, I take your senior management team, and I put each of them in a room, and I ask them, what do you think digital transformation is in your company? And tell me where you are today. I'll get as many answers as there are members of the senior leadership team. And it's because they don't use the same language. When one says digitalization and another says digitalization, it's naturally not the same definition. It's just the data doesn't compute here. And so we need to start to really share a common language, because if we are to change the culture of things, because this goes to the culture then, you can't change unless we can communicate simply. And so understanding where we stand, whether we're a laggard or in some instances a leader, the main thing is to know where we are. When we then are a lagger, we can look at the things that we score low on, and this is from the Digitopia database. So when people are lagging, have low scores, they tend to score, for example, low on things that have to do with innovation, their innovation mindset. They tend to score low on the ability to understand analytics and data in the company, and they tend to score low as a relative to the other point on actually the leadership understanding things. But now at least we have a common language and we know what to talk about and then what to change. And this, therefore, gets me to the fact that leadership always shows up as being the major challenge in digital transformation, and for that matter of fact, in any transformation. Whether it's digital, sustainability, or any other major transformation that we go through, the fact that we don't have leadership that have the right capabilities is a problem. And this is not leadership skills that are individual ones. This is organizational leadership skills. This model, which is from a small Danish company, is a combination of 10 leadership skills plus 3. 10 plus 3, okay? And I know it's late, and some of you are probably, because you do know math better than I do, you're sitting there saying, why doesn't he say 13? Since I'm Danish, in my country, the number 13 is unlucky. If you travel with SAS, you will actually see that on the airplanes, there's no seat 13. And so that's why, since this originates from a small Danish company, it's 10 plus 3, because it can't be 13, because that would be very unlucky. But however, I mean, I think for you, think of this in 4 groups. There are a set of skills that are strategy skills. There are a set of skills that are technology skills. There are a set of organizations and organizational skills, and then there's leadership skills. These capabilities or skills is what we need to understand where our entire management team is on this spectrum. And you may say, why? Okay. Ambidextrous. Ambidextrous is an organizational skill set that allows managers across the organization to manage the stable and then the agile. Okay? Or as a colleague of mine in Gartner a number of years ago said, using Japanese history as the best indicator, is in any organization we have to have samurais. They maintain the structure, the rules, the culture, and things that are important. And we have to have the ninjas. They're agile, they move fast, they do innovation. And no company survives unless we balance that skill set essentially in a leader. Because the way we did digital transformation the last 15 years has been to say, this department is the innovation department, and they do all the innovative stuff, and these people over here have to maintain what we run. And so inadvertently we tell these people, you're very cool, and we tell these people, you're kind of second citizens. Guess who quits then? The people over here. And what happens is they're the ones that run the company, so our digital transformation fails. So we need to move this away from organizations into leaders. And that's just one example here. All of these different, data-driven, okay, is pretty obvious. But ask yourself, have we rated our managers on where they stand capability-wise and what they think the organization's capabilities are? And this little company does a truckload of different benchmarks. And when I take those 4, you could see companies on average scale from 1 to 7. Companies on average rate themselves pretty well on strategy, and they rate themselves pretty well on leadership at the bottom. I don't know if you can read that. Can you read that? No? I can't. But it says 3.9, okay? They rate themselves low on the ability of the organization to change, and they rate themselves low on the ability of actually taking technology and absorb that into the company. And so leaders don't know how to do that, which is why your digital transformation will fail. So I would recommend start now to focus on the capabilities of your organization, because if you're to succeed with AI, with the transformation of digitalization, it starts with the managers, not in IT, but the managers across the organization that should be able to make this transformation possible because they have the right capabilities that you need in the organization. And with that, I can only say, I said I would do 3 things. I did 3 things. A vision for the North Star of what you are aiming towards the next 30 years. 4 areas that you should focus on right now, and you need to determine within those what the different aspects you focus on. They will be transformational for you in whatever you do. And then last but not least, we don't succeed with this unless you really double down together with HR on helping the digital transformation inside the company. That starts with knowing where you stand, and then it starts with developing the capabilities of managers. May the AI force be with you in whatever you do. Thank you very much.